Welcome back to the War Room. Today we're doing another army review, and we're going to be looking at the Ogor Mawtribes today. This is an army that I think is really interesting because it really leans into the take your best unit, take your best model, and play that. The list that's kind of going around right now, I think, is the 5 Stonehorn list. It's awesome. It's like you've got 5 units. They're all super cool models. They're all huge monsters. If you aren't already subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and subscribe now. Like this video. If you play this army, leave a comment. Let us know what list you're playing. But let's dive right into this. So we'll go ahead and hop right into the battle traits. The first one we've got is Trampling Charge. This is in any charge phase. Pick a friendly Ogre or Rhinox unit that charged this turn to use this ability. Then pick a visible enemy unit within 1 inch of it to be the target. Roll a d3. Add 2 to the roll if this unit is a monster. On a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. The Rhinox units are essentially just the Scrap Launcher and the Iron Blaster. The Ogre units is most of what we're going to see here in the War Scrolls. So essentially most of the stuff you're getting when it charges is going to be doing mortal damage on the charge. If it's a monster, it's going to be doing pretty much the maximum every time. Ravenous Brutes, add 2 to run rolls for friendly Ogres units while you have not used the Feast on Flesh ability this battle. The Feast on Flesh ability we'll get to in a second. So essentially, if you don't use Feast on Flesh, you can add 2 to your runs. So, Feast on Flesh, this is once per battle per army at the end of any turn. Pick a friendly Ogre unit that is in combat or that used a fight ability this turn to be the targets. Roll a d3 for each target. On a 2+, heal X, where X is an amount equal to the roll. Pick an enemy unit in combat with the target. You cannot pick the same enemy unit more than once. Inflict an amount of mortal damage on that enemy unit equal to the roll. So once per battle, if everybody is in combat or everybody's used a fight ability, that's your time to use this, because you're going to do, on a d3, on a 2-up, you're going to do that many mortals, and you're going to heal that many wounds for each unit that's in combat. So that's really good. It is once per battle, though, so you got to maximize it. You want to have as many units as you can in combat. Moving on to the battle formations, we got Prophets of the Gulping God, the Master Butchers. Add 1 to casting rolls for friendly Ogor Mawtribes Wizards. I don't think this army really relies heavily on wizards. There's only a couple of them in here, but you get to add 1 to cast, which is always awesome. Heralds of the Everwinter, this Eyes of the Storm. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for shooting attacks that target friendly Ogor Mawtribes infantry units while they are wholly within 12 inches of any friendly Beastclaw Raiders heroes. So if you've got your Iron Guts or your Lead Belchers or your Gluttons, they're wholly within your Frostlord on Stonehorn. They're -1 to be shot at. So that's a pretty nice one. Beast Handlers, Brutal Shock. Each time a friendly Beastclaw Raiders monster uses the Trampling Charge ability, add 1 to the amount of mortal damage inflicted, if any. As I understand it, this is what people are using when they're running 5 Stonehorns, because you're just adding 1 to mortal damage on the charges, and you're going to add 2 to the roll with your monsters when you charge. So you're going to be getting 3 to 4 mortals probably every single time you charge with any of your Stonehorns. So with that list, this is the one you go with. Black Power Fanatics. This is called Feed Your Cannons. Ranged weapons used by friendly Lead Belchers or Iron Blaster units have shoot in combat while they are within the combat range of a friendly Ogor Mawtribes hero. If you're running a whole bunch of Lead Belchers, throw a hero right in next to him, your Tyrant, whatever, your Frostlord on Stonehorn. These guys get shoot in combat, which is pretty dang awesome. We're going to get to their War Scrolls here in a second, but Lead Belchers are pretty cool. Moving on to the heroic traits, this is you pick one of your heroes to get one of these. The Great Gut Lord, ignore negative modifiers to this unit's control score and to hit rolls and wound rolls for this unit's attacks. So you can't be minus to hit, minus to wound. It doesn't affect him. Pretty awesome. Booming Roar, subtract 5 from control scores of enemy infantry units while they are within combat with this unit. Touched by the Everwinter, if this unit is not a priest, it has priest 1. If this unit is already a priest, you can reroll chanting rolls of 1 for it instead. If this unit is a wizard, it cannot use spell abilities and prayer abilities in the same phase. Makes you a priest, which is pretty cool. prayer lords are just awesome in general. I think, especially these guys, if they're not going to have wizards, having priests makes these guys really good. So I think Touched by the Everwinter or the Great Gut Lord is probably what you would throw on whatever hero you want. Artifacts of Power. We've got Gruesome Trophies. Add 1 to hit rolls for combat attacks that target heroes or monsters made by friendly Ogre Mawtribes units while they are wholly within 12 inches of this unit. So, +1 to hit against heroes and monsters is awesome. We're seeing a lot of Monster Mash in 4th edition as of right now. So, this is a good way to go. Once per battle in any combat phase, you can use the Fang of Gur. Pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Ward rolls cannot be made for the target for the rest of the turn. Turning off ward rolls is really cool, especially if you got a hero that's got on 5-up ward. Some of these heroes have 4-up wards. You just turn off their ward entirely, and you can just throw in as much damage as you can into them. The Elixir of the Frostworm. Once per battle in any shooting phase, pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Roll a dice. Inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. Then heal X, where X is the amount equal to the roll. This is similar to Feast on Flesh, but it's just on a D6, not a D3 2+. So you can do a bunch of damage and heal a bunch of damage. Okay, moving on to the spell lore. The first one is called Troggoth Guts. It goes off on a 5. Pick a friendly Ogre Mawtribes wizard to cast this spell. Pick a visible friendly Ogre Mawtribes unit within 12 inches of them that has not been picked to be the target of this ability this turn to be the target. Then make a casting roll of 2d6. Heal D3 and add 3 to the target's control score for the rest of the turn. This is your unlimited spell, so while you can't put it on the same unit a whole bunch, you could spread it around and put it on a few different units if you wanted, if you had enough wizards to cast it. And Greasy Deluge goes off on a 6. Pick a friendly Ogre Mawtribes wizard to cast this spell. Pick a visible enemy unit within 18 inches of them to be the target. Then make a casting roll of 2d6. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for the target's attacks until the start of your next turn. -1 to hit on something that is super dangerous to you is awesome. This is an 18-inch range, which is pretty far for magic in this edition. So making an enemy unit -1 to hit is really awesome. Blood Feast. This goes off on a 7. Pick a friendly Ogre Mawtribes wizard to cast this spell. Pick a visible friendly Ogre infantry unit wholly within 12 inches of them to be the target. Then make a casting roll of 2d6. Add 1 to the attacks characteristic of the target's melee weapons until the start of your next turn. If you're going with a lot of infantry in your lists, this is going to be a big thing that you're probably going to try and cast every single turn, so you're getting +1 attacks on someone's melee weapons, because this only can go on to infantry units. So your Iron Guts, your Gluttons. Moving on to the prayer lore, we've got the Call of the Blizzard. This goes off on a 4. Pick a friendly Ogre Mawtribes priest to chant this prayer. Pick a terrain feature within 18 inches of them to be the target. Then make a chanting roll of d6. Place a blizzard token next to the target. Terrain features that have a blizzard token gain the obscuring terrain ability. In addition, if the chanting roll was 8+, until the start of your next turn, friendly Beast Claw Raiders units have a ward of 5+, while they are within 3 inches of any terrain features that have blizzard tokens. This is your unlimited prayer too, so you can, with as many priests as you want, as you have, you can try and get this off and throw blizzard tokens onto everything. The super one going off on an 8+ and giving everybody a 5-up ward is really good. The Pulverizing Hailstorm. This goes off on a 4. Pick a friendly Ogre Mawtribes priest to chant this prayer. Pick a point on the battlefield within 12 inches of them. Then pick each visible enemy unit within 3 inches of that point to be the targets. Then make a chanting roll of d6. Roll a d3 for each target. On a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. If the chanting roll was 8+, double the amount of mortal damage inflicted. So this one, if they're all castled up, you can just throw this right in the middle of it, and everybody within 3 takes d3 mortals on a 2+, or if it's an 8+, then you double that. Keening Gale. This goes off on a 4. Pick a friendly Ogre Mawtribes priest to chant this prayer. Pick a visible friendly Ogre Mawtribes monster or Mournfane pack unit wholly within 12 inches of them to be the target. Then make a chanting roll of d6. For the rest of the turn, the target can use the run ability and still use charge abilities later in the turn. In addition, if the chanting roll was 8+, you can re-roll run rolls and charge rolls for the target for the rest of the turn. So run and charge is awesome. If you get the 8+, you can re-roll runs and charges. Moving on to the War Scrolls now, we're going to start off with Kragnos. We've covered him before, but he's really just super awesome. So we'll run through this again real quick. 4 up armor save, 5 up ward save, 10-inch movement, 18 health control, 15. He's got the Dread Mace, 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, Rend 3, damage 4. Tusk Breaker, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, Rend 2, damage D3 with crit 2 hits. And then the Hooves of Rack and Ruin, 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, Rend 1, damage 2. He's battle damaged when he has 10 or more damage points. The attacks characteristic of the Dread Mace goes down to 4, and his control goes down to 10. He's got the Shield Inviolate. This is a reaction for when your opponent has declared a spell ability. If this unit was picked to be the target of that spell, roll a dice on a 3+, ignore the effect of that spell on this unit. This unit can use this ability more than once per phase, but only once per spell ability. He's got a 3+ spell ignore that he can use as many times as you want. He just can't use it on the same spell. The Avatar of Destruction. If this unit would be automatically destroyed, it is not automatically destroyed. Instead, allocate 6 damage points to it. Ward rolls cannot be made for those damage points. So you can't just one-shot him. And then Rampaging Destruction. This is once per turn per army in any charge phase. If this unit charged this phase, pick one of the following effects. Roll a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit. On a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on that unit equal to the roll. Pick an enemy monster in combat with this unit and roll 2d6. On a 7, this ability has no effect. Otherwise, inflict an amount of mortal damage on that unit equal to the results on the dice used for the 2d6 roll multiplied together. For example, a 2d6 roll of 2 and 6 would inflict 12 mortal damage. He can do 36 mortal damage on a charge if he's going into a monster, or you do the first one, and on a 2+, you do that much mortal damage to each of them. So you can do 6 mortal damage to each unit if you were rolling hot. At the end of Empires, this is in your charge phase. For the rest of the turn, add 1 to the number of dice rolled when making charge rolls for friendly destruction units while they are wholly within 12 inches of this unit to a maximum of 3. So he can give everybody 3d6 charge, which is super cool. You have to be kind of right around him in the charge phase when he does it, but 3d6 charge is awesome. All right, moving on to the Tyrant. He's got a 4 up armor save, 6-inch movement, 8 health, and 5 control. He's got a ranged weapon. It's the Ogre pistols, 10-inch range, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, Rend 1, damage D3, with the shoot and combat keyword. His melee weapons, he's got the Thunder Mace, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, Rend 2, damage 3, with crit mortals. And then the Beast Skewer Glaive, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, Rend 1, damage 2, with anti-monster, +1 Rend. He's got the Bully of the First Degree ability. This is in your hero phase. Pick another friendly Ogre Mawtribes unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit to be the target. Add 3 to the target's control score until the start of your next turn. So, a little control score manipulation there. Buffing your own control score. Brawler Guts. Add 1 to the D3 roll made when this unit uses the Trampling Charge ability. So, he's going to be doing a lot of mortals when he charges in. Moving on to the Slaughtermaster. He's got a 5 up armor save, and he's a Wizard 1, 6-inch movement, 8 health, 5 control. His melee weapons, he's got the Stump Blades, 2d6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, Rend 1, damage 1. And then the Noblar's Implements, 3 attacks, hitting on 5s, wounding on 5s, no Rend, damage 1 with the companion keyword. He's got the Fill the Pot ability. Each time an enemy unit is destroyed by a combat attack made by a friendly Ogre Mawtribes unit wholly within 18 inches of this unit, give this unit a Grisly Remains point to a maximum of 3. And then that comes into play with the Great Cauldron. So in any hero phase, you can spend 1 or more of this unit's Grisly Remains points. For each point spent, pick a friendly Gutbusters unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit to be the target, then pick one of the following effects. Blood Gruel. This target has a ward of 5+ for the rest of the turn. Spine Marrow, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of the target's melee weapons for the rest of the turn. So your Gutbusters are, your Iron Guts, your Lead Belchers, Gluttons, the Butcher, the Tyrant is a Gutbuster as well. So if you have these two guys together, then you're giving out a 5-up ward, or you're giving out, +1 attacks for the rest of the turn. So the only trick with that is that an enemy unit has to be destroyed each turn to get the Grisly Remains points within 18 inches of him. Moving on to the Butcher. He's got a 5-up armor save. He's a Wizard 1, 6-inch movement, 7 health, and 5 control. Butcher's tools, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 3. And then he's got the Savage Hunter ability. While they are wholly within 12 inches of this unit, friendly Gutbusters units can use charge abilities, even if they used a run ability in the same turn. We're not seeing a whole bunch of the infantry-heavy lists and armies right now. We're seeing a lot more of the monster mash with the Stonehorns. But if you wanted to do something with all of the Gutbusters and kind of have this synergy where everyone's getting run in charge, with like the Heralds of the Everwinter battle formation, where you're -1 to be shot at if you're infantry and you have 1 Beastclaw Raider hero, like you can kind of build some synergy around that. But the list building can get a little tricky because you can only have so many heroes and some of them don't fit into the other units. But this guy giving out run in charge is awesome. The Blood Pelt Hunter, got a 5-up armor save, 6-inch movement, 8 health, 5 control. The ranged weapons, he's got the Skull Shatter crossbow, 18 inches of range, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage D3. And then the Impaling Spear, 12-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage D6 with anti-monster +1 rend. The melee weapons, he's got the Hacker Axe and Meat Blade, 5 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 2 with anti-monster +1 rend. He's your monster hunter. Everything he does is to kill monsters, essentially. You got the Beast Breaker ability here. If the target is a monster, the damage characteristic of this unit's Skull Shatter crossbow is 3, and the damage characteristic of its Impaling Spear is 6. So the Impaling Spear is already anti-monster +1 rend, so you'd be rend 2, damage 6 onto monsters with that 1 attack. You're hitting on 4s though, so it's a little questionable. Unrelenting Hunter, this is once per turn per army in the enemy movement phase. If this unit is more than 9 inches from all enemy units, it can use the normal move ability as if it were your movement phase. So he can kind of sneak in and get closer to people or move farther away so that he can shoot. The Ogre Gluttons, 5-up armor save, 6-inch movement, 4 health, 2 control. They've got the Glutton weapons, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 2. And they have the Insatiable Gluttony ability. If you have used the Feast on Flesh ability this battle, add 1 to the control score of this unit for each model in this unit. So these guys' control score can get huge. The unit isn't very big. Like you can't have these units of 20 of these guys because I think it's only unit of 6. Adding 1 to each of the control scores can really bump up their control score considering they're control 2 each. If they've already used Feast on Flesh, then they're control 3 each, which is awesome. The Iron Guts, 5-up armor save, 6-inch movement, 4 health, 2 control. They've got the Iron Gut weapons, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 2, damage 3. They've got the Protect the Tyrant ability. While this unit is within the combat ranges of any friendly tyrants, both this unit and those tyrants have a ward of 6+. So if you're taking a tyrant, take these guys, put them right next to each other. Everybody's got a ward save. Down to the Iron Guts, once per battle in any combat phase. This unit can use 2 fight abilities this phase. After the first is used, however, this unit has strike last for the rest of the turn. So they can fight twice, which is pretty awesome, especially if you go in and you hit hard on that first one. The second time you hit, you hopefully don't get hit back very hard, and then you get to hit again. Man-Eaters, they got a 5-up armor save, 6-inch movement, 4 health, 2 control. The ranged weapons, they've got pistols or throwing weapons, 10-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage D3 with shoot and combat keyword. Then they have the Man-Eater weapons, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 2. The Been There, Done That ability. So this is once per turn per army, and it's a reaction if this unit was picked as the target of a non-core ability. Roll a dice on a 4+. That ability has no effect on this unit. As I understand it, non-core abilities are what most War Scroll abilities are, but I believe that like magic is a non-core ability as well, so I think this is a spell ignore. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but as I understand it, that's what this is. Most of it is War Scroll abilities and things like that, but like shooting, attack, charge, all that stuff, people can still do. Moving on to the Gorger Maw Pack, they've got a 6-up armor save, 6-inch movement, 5 health, 2 control. For melee weapons, they've got the clubs, claws, and jaws. 5 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 2, with anti-infantry +1 rend. They've got the troglodytic lurkers ability. Pick this unit if it has not been deployed. Set up this unit in reserve lurking on the fringes. It has now been deployed. And then they have the frenzied hunters ability. Pick this unit if it is lurking on the fringes. Set up this unit on the battlefield wholly within 9 inches of battlefield edge and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So these guys, you can put them off to the side, and then your movement phase, you can bring them in and off the board edge and kind of figure out where you want to put them. The lead belchers, they've got a 5-up armor save, 6-inch movement, 4 health, 2 control. They've got the lead belcher gun, 15-inch range, D3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage 1. And then they have bludgeoning blows, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, no rend, damage 2. Firing from the belly, this is in your shooting phase. If this unit has not used a move ability this turn and was not set up this turn, add 1 to hit rolls for this unit's shooting attacks for the rest of the turn. So if they're just camped out, they're +1 to hit. So you're going to be hitting on 3s and wounding on 3s, which is awesome. Powder Noblars. This unit has up to 2 Powder Noblar tokens each time this unit uses shoot ability. For each of this unit's Powder Noblars that are on the battlefield, you can re-roll 1 random characteristic roll for this unit's attacks characteristic. If a random characteristic re-roll in this matter is 1, remove 1 of this unit's Powder Noblars from the battlefield. So when you're rolling those D3s for the shooting attacks, you can re-roll 1 of them, but if you roll a 1, you have to kill one of these guys. But it's a token, so they don't count towards control score or anything. It's very similar to like the cities of Sigmar. The Fusiliers have the ammo guy, who if you can re-roll 1 shot to hit, but if you roll a 1, then he is taken off the board. The Iron Blaster, 4-up armor save, 9-inch movement, 9 health, 2 control. You've got the Iron Blaster Cannon Big Shot, 18-inch range, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 2, damage D3 +3. And then you have the Iron Blaster Cannon Hail Shot, 12-inch range, 8 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage 2. And with those, this is where lethal payload comes in. Each time this unit uses a shoot ability, pick either the Big Shot or Hail Shot weapon characteristics for all the attacks it makes with its Iron Blaster Cannon. So you essentially have 2 big shots that have a longer range and do more damage, or you have 8 smaller shots that have a shorter range, less damage, and wound on 3s instead of 2s. For melee weapons, they have the Clubber, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, no rend, damage 2. And then you have the Rhinox's Sharp Horns, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage D3, with the companion keyword. So it's essentially like a cannon. Doesn't have a ton of range compared to like the Cities of Sigmar cannons, but it's a very similar thing. But this thing can move around because it's got the Rhinoxes. The Noblar Scrap Launcher, 4-up armor save, 9-inch move, 9 health, 2 control. For range weapons, it's got the Piles of Old Scrap, 24-inch range, 3d6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, no rend, damage 1, with anti-infantry +1 rend, and crit auto wound. And then for melee weapons, you've got the Scrapper Stabbers, 7 attacks, hitting on 5s, wounding on 5s, no rend, damage 1. And the Rhinox's Sharp Horns, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage D3, with the companion keyword. And then you've got the Loaded Up ability in your shooting phase. If this unit is within the combat range of a friendly Noblars unit, this unit's shooting attacks score critical hits on unmodified hit rolls of 5+ until the start of your next turn. So instead of critting on 6s, you can crit on 5s. So if you're taking this, take some Noblars and you just throw them right next to it. And then you have the Rain of Scrap. In your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit that had any models slain this turn by this unit's shooting attacks to be the target. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for the target's attacks for the rest of the turn. So you just blast this into someone, and if any models were slain, they're -1 to hit. So you throw this into infantry, you're probably going to kill 1 if they have 1 health or whatever. Then they're just going to be -1 to hit for the rest of the turn. Moving on to the Noblars. 6-up armor save, 5-inch move, 1 health, 1 control. The ranged weapons, they've got Sharp Stuff, and it's 8-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 5s, no rend, damage 1. And then for melee weapons, they've got the motley assortment of weapons, 1 attack, hitting on 5s, wounding on 5s, no rend, damage 1. I love these dudes. They're just like these little tiny goblin-looking dudes, and they're just, the models are just very chaotic, and like you got a dude who's got the hammer and the nail, and that dude's got a spiked club, and like it's just funny to me. Nasty traps and tricks. In any charge phase, pick an enemy unit within 6 inches of this unit and that used a move ability this turn to be the target. You cannot pick the same unit to be the target of this ability more than once per turn. Roll a d3 on a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on the target equal to the roll. So if these guys are about to get charged, essentially, this pops off. They have set bear traps, and there's put nails on the ground, and all kinds of, there's barbed wire trenches and things that they've built. Very, very just like funny to like think about that in my brain. But because a lot of times you move your whatever, I'm going to be just outside of 3 so I can charge you. And so if they're within 6, then it's like, D3 mortals on you. Okay, now we're getting to the big boys. We've got the Frost Lord on Stonehorn, 4 up armor save, 10-inch movement, 15 health, control 10. He's got the Frost Spear, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 2, damage 2, with charge +1 damage. And then the Stonehorn's Rock Hard Horns, 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 2, damage 3, with charge +1 damage and the companion keyword. And then the Stonehorn's Hooves, d6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage d3, with the companion keyword as well. Is battle damaged. While this unit has 10 or more damage points, the attack's characteristic of its Stonehorn's Rock Hard Horns is 4. Earth-Shattering Charge. This is once per turn per army in any charge phase. If this unit charged this phase, pick an enemy unit within 1 inch of it to be the target, inflict d3 mortal damage on the target, then roll 2d6. This unit can move a distance up to the value of the roll. During that move, it can pass through models in the target unit that must end that move in combat. So it's essentially a 2d6 pile-in that you do d3 mortals on, and on top of that, you do the trampling charge, as I understand it. You're doing a lot of mortals when these guys charge in. The Frost Spear. If any damage points are allocated to an enemy hero or monster by attacks made with this unit's Frost Spear, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristic of that enemy's melee weapons until the start of your next turn. If you're fighting into a hero or a monster with this guy, go first so that you can probably get that -1 attacks and then get hit back with a little less force. Stone Skeleton. Ignore the first damage point that would be allocated to this unit in each phase. So in the magic phase, if you have get hit with a d3 mortals thing and you take 2 of them, you would ignore that first one, so you'd only take 1. And then when the shooting phase comes up, you get shot, you'd ignore that first point you take and take the rest of them. And then same thing when you're fighting. So these guys just become pretty tanky because if you were getting hit every phase, you're ignoring at least 3 damage throughout the whole thing. So this is what a lot of people are running 5 of these. Or 4 of these and some other units. A lot of people are running some mixture of the Stonehorns, Thunder Tusks, all that good stuff. Moving on to the Frost Lord on Thunder Tusk. 4 up armor save, 10-inch movement, 15 health, 10 control. He's got the Ice Blast, 12-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage d3 +2 with the companion keyword. And then for melee weapons, you got the Frost Spear, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 2, damage 2 with charge +1 damage. And then the Thunder Tusk's Colossal Tusks, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 5, with anti-infantry +1 rend and the companion keyword. So he's battle damaged when this unit has 10 or more damage points. The attack's characteristic of its Thunder Tusk's Colossal Tusks is 2. And then the Sweeping Tusks, this is once per turn per army in any movement phase. Pick an enemy unit in combat with this unit to be the target. Roll a dice on a 3+. Roll a dice for each model in the target unit. For each 5+, inflict 1 mortal damage on the target. This is the Horde Killer on 5+. Do that many mortals. You roll a 3+ first, so it's not going to go off every turn. 66% of the time it should. And then you're just doing a whole bunch of mortals every time. And it doesn't matter what the enemy unit is. It doesn't matter if it's monster, hero, infantry, any of that. It's just an enemy unit in combat with you. Then you've got the Bellowing Voice. Once per battle per army in your charge phase. Pick any number of friendly Beastclaw Raiders units wholly within 12 inches of this unit to be the target. Each target can add 1 to the d3 roll made if that unit uses the trampling charge ability this turn. You're pretty much just getting extra mortals because when you're adding 1, you're just going to be getting 2s and 3s all the time. If you have the battle formation where you're +1 to the mortal damage, you're going to be doing 3s and 4s, just chipping away at everybody every time you charge. Okay, moving on to the Huskard on Stonehorn. He's got a 4 up armor saved, Priest 1, 10-inch movement, 14 health, 10 control. And then with the ranged weapons, you pick one of these three. So you could do the chain trap, which is 12-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage 3, with anti-monster plus 1 rend. You could do the harpoon launcher, which is 18-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage D3. Or you could do the blood vulture, 24-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, no rend, damage 1. I think the chain trap is probably the move here. The first two hit on 4s and wound on 3s, and this one is base damage 3 with anti-monster plus 1 rend. And as we know, there's a lot of monster mashing going on here. The blood vulture, I mean, I guess hitting on 2s is nice, but with a more range, but I just don't understand. No rend with 1 damage, I just think isn't worth your time. For melee weapons, you've got the punches and kicks, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, no rend, damage 1. The stone horns, rock hard horns, 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 2, damage 3, with charge plus 1 damage, and the companion keyword. And then the stone horns hooves, d6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage d3, with the companion keyword. Something I love about the stone horns is that the companion is plus 1 damage on the charge, and they're 3 damage base anyways, so you're going to be 4 damage on the charge is really cool. Battle damage, while this unit has 10 or more damage points, the attack's characteristic of its stone horns, rock hard horns, is 4. It has stone skeleton, so it's the same. He ignores the first damage point that would be allocated to this unit in each phase, so a little bit more tanky. And then it's got Everwinter's Goad. Once per turn per army in any combat phase, pick each friendly and enemy monster within this unit's combat range to be the targets. Roll a dice for each target on a 3+. If the target is a friendly Ogre Mawtribes unit, its companion weapons have crit 2 hits for the rest of the turn. If the target is an enemy unit, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with its companion weapons for the rest of the turn. This is really cool, like a cool buff thing, because if you, like I said, people are just running a whole bunch of stone horns or thunder tusks, whatever, and getting crit 2 hits on those guys is really awesome because they just do so much damage if it's on the charge. And then you do feast on flesh, like just with the impact hits. There's so many things to have so much damage output with these guys. And then on top of that, if you can roll 3-ups onto enemy monsters, then they're -1 to hit. Moving on to the Huskard on Thunder Tusk, it's a very similar war scroll here. 4-up armor save, priest 1, 10-inch movement, 14 health, 10 control. It's got the same thing with the chain trap, the harpoon launcher, and the blood vulture. You just pick one of those. But in addition, it has the ice blast. So ice blast is 12-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage D3 plus 2. And it's got the companion keyword. So you can always throw that on someone. And then you pick one of the chain trap, harpoon launcher, or blood vulture. And then melee weapons, you've got punches and kicks. 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, no rend, damage 1. And the Thunder Tusks, Colossal Tusks, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 5, with anti-infantry plus 1 rend and the companion keyword. Battle damage, while this unit has 10 or more damage points, the attack's characteristic of the Thunder Tusks, Colossal Tusks is 2. So, I mean, you just lose 1 attack. And then it has the freezing aura, so once per turn per army in any combat phase, pick an enemy infantry unit in combat with this unit to be the target, roll a dice, add 1 to the roll if the target had strike last as a result of this ability in the previous turn. On a 4+, the target has strike last for the rest of the turn. So this guy can just kind of keep on throwing strike last onto an infantry unit. Moving on to the Stonehorn Beast Riders, 4-up armor save, 10-inch move, 14 health, 10 control. They have a harpoon launcher, and then you can pick between the chain trap or the blood vulture. They got punches and kicks, 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, no rend, damage 1. And the stone horns, rock hard horns, 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 2, damage 3, with charge plus 1 damage and the companion keyword. And then the stone horns hooves, d6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, 1 rend, damage D3, with the companion keyword. Battle damage, while this unit has 10 or more damage points, the attack's characteristic of its stone horns, rock hard horns, goes down to 4. The stone skeleton, we've covered that. The Stonehorn Avalanche, once per turn per army in any combat phase. If this unit charged this turn, roll a dice on a 3+. When this unit makes a pile-in move, this phase, add d6 to the distance it can move. So you roll, if you get a 3+, you can add that d6, so you're potentially piling in 9 inches if it charged. But a lot of times you're going to roll 1s and 2s, but still a 5-inch pile-in is pretty solid. The Thunder Tusk Beast Riders, 4-up armor save, 10-inch movement, 14 health, 10 control. And then very similar to what we've already seen with the Thunder Tusk and the guys on it, you've got the Ice Blast and the Harpoon Launcher, and then you pick between the Chain Trap and the Blood Vulture. And then you've got Punches and Kicks, 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, no rend, damage 1. And the Thunder Tusks, Colossal Tusks, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, 1 rend, damage 5, with anti-infantry plus 1 rend, and the companion keyword. Battle damage, 10 damage points. Colossal Tusks goes down to 2. And then you have the Everwinter's Assault. Once per turn per army, at the end of any turn, if this unit charged this turn, pick an enemy unit in combat with it to be the target. Roll a dice on a 3+ for the rest of the turn. If the target is a monster, subtract 3 from its control score. If the target is a non-monster unit, subtract 5 from its control score. So this is just another way to manipulate control score. Every army, I feel like, has some sort of way to manipulate control score a little bit or buff up your own control score. These guys have a good amount of it. The Icebrow Hunter, 5 up armor save, 6-inch movement, 7 health, 5 control. He's got the Great Throwing Spear, 10-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage D3, with anti-monster plus 1 rend. And then the Hunter's Crossbow, 12-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, no rend, damage D3, with anti-monster plus 1 rend. And then he has the Culling Club, 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, no rend, damage 2, with anti-monster plus 1 rend. So another just monster hunter. Seems to be the theme of this army. Masters of the Ambush, this is in your deployment phase. Pick this unit and up to 2 friendly Frost Sabers units if those units have not been deployed. Set up those units in reserve, outflanking the prey. They have now been deployed. And then this goes into the hunt is on. In your movement phase, pick this unit if it is outflanking the prey. Set up this unit wholly within 9 inches of a battlefield edge and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. Then set up each Frost Sabers unit that was set up outflanking the prey with this unit wholly within 12 inches of it and more than 9 inches away from all enemy units. So he can kind of come in, and then all the Frost Sabers can come in within 12 inches of him. So if you're running this guy, run some Frost Sabers. You can go snag some objectives, some battle tactics pretty easily. But I don't think these guys are anything super special. We'll take a look at the Frost Sabers now. So you got a 6 up armor save with these guys, 9-inch movement, 3 health, 1 control. They've got the Tusks and Claws, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage 1. They have Hunters of the Frozen Wilds. This unit is not visible to enemy units while it is within 3 inches of a terrain feature and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. So this kind of just helps so that they can't be shot off the board very easily. And then they are Beasts, so this unit has a maximum control score of 1. So instead of 1 control per model, it's 1 control as a unit. The Mournfang Pack, you got a 4 up armor save here, 9-inch movement, 6 health, 2 control. The Ironlock Pistol for ranged weapons, 10-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage D3, with the shoot and combat keyword. And then you got the Mournfang Rider Weapon, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 2, with anti-cavalry plus 1 rend. And then the Mournfang's Tusks, you got 4 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage 2, with the companion keyword. The Ironlock Pistol is just for the champion, so if you have a unit of 4, you can have 1. Lumpen Wall of Flesh. Subtract 1 from wound rolls for shooting attacks that target friendly Beast Claw Raiders units while they are within this unit's combat range. So if these guys are around, you can kind of keep your Stonehorns alive easier. You can kind of tank some more shots because being -1 to wound is really good. It's only in shooting, not in combat. Alpha Cavalry. The charge plus 1 damage weapon ability has no effect on attacks that target this unit. If something charges into you, it's got lances, you've got anything that's plus 1 damage on the charge, doesn't affect these guys. So they should ignore that plus 1 damage, which is really cool. Firebelly. 5 up armor save, wizard 1, 6-inch movement, 7 health, 5 control. The ranged weapon, he's got Fire Breath, 8-inch range, 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, no rend, damage 1, with the shoot and combat keyword. And then the Basalt Hammer, 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 2s, rend 1, damage D3. And then the Torrent of Flame ability, add 1 to the damage characteristic of this unit's Fire Breath for attacks that target infantry. So if you want to have like a cheap little wizard, he's your guy. I do like his model though, because he's breathing out fire. He's got that giant hammer. Pretty cool stuff. He's got kind of like the tattoos on him. The Icefall Yetis. 6 up armor save, 6 up ward save, 6-inch movement, 4 health, 1 control. The Claws and Ice Encrusted Weapons. 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, rend 1, damage 2. They have the Bounding Leaps ability, so this is in the enemy combat phase. This unit can move up to 3 inches. It can move into combat. It's very similar to like Mighty Destroyers. If they failed their charge or whatever, you can kind of slide in, or if they're just outside of a combat range because they didn't want to bring them in, then they can slide in and get where they need to go and get into combat, which is pretty cool. I love stuff like that. It makes you really have to plan out your charges when you're playing against these guys and thinking, where are these guys? They can move in the enemy combat phase. Even if they're not moving into combat, they can always just be moving, and so they're just slowly sliding around the board. And then moving on to the faction terrain, it's the Great Maw Pot. You got a 5-up armor save, no movement, 6 health, no control. It's cover and impassable. The Great Maw Pot is either full or empty. It starts the battle full. I've got to throw him in. If an enemy model is slain within 6 inches of the Great Maw Pot when it is empty, it becomes full. And then the Vessel of the Gulping God. This is in your hero phase. If the Great Maw Pot is full, pick a friendly Ogre Wizard within 3 inches of it to be the target. Add 1 to the power level of the target for the rest of the turn. And then Battle Broth. If the Great Maw Pot is full, heal each friendly unit wholly within 18 inches of it, D3. After you have done so, the Great Maw Pot is empty. So essentially you just got some guy right there chefing it up. And you want to put a wizard there so that he gets an extra cast. So you could throw the Fire Belly over there, because you just have to be within 3 inches of him. But there's a lot of ways to kind of heal your army and kind of tank things out, because you don't have a whole lot of armor saves with the army as a whole. And then the other faction terrain piece that you've got is the Maw Pit. 5-up armor save, no movement, 10 health, no control. It's cover and impassable. It's got the Altar of the Gulping God. While this terrain feature has a Head Butcher, the Head Butcher cannot use move abilities. Instead of measuring range or visibility to the Head Butcher, measure this terrain feature instead. All attacks that would target the Head Butcher target this terrain feature instead. If the terrain feature is destroyed, before removing it from the battlefield, inflict D3 mortal damage on the Head Butcher, then set up the Head Butcher on the battlefield wholly within 3 inches of this terrain feature and not in combat. That unit is no longer a Head Butcher. If it is not possible to set up the Head Butcher, it is slain. Feed the Maw. If this terrain feature does not have a Head Butcher, pick a friendly Butcher or Slaughtermaster within 3 inches of it and not in combat to be the target. Place the target on this terrain feature. The target is now a Head Butcher. So this is why you're taking a Butcher or a Slaughtermaster, is just to use this Maw Pit. Step away from the Maw. If this terrain feature has a Head Butcher that was not placed on it this turn, set up a Head Butcher on the battlefield wholly within 3 inches of this terrain feature and not in combat. That unit is no longer a Head Butcher. And then Throat of Gur. Pick up to 3 enemy units within 12 inches of this terrain feature or within 18 inches if it has a Head Butcher to be the targets. Roll a d3 for each target. Add 1 to the roll if the target is more than 3 inches from all other enemy units on a 2+, inflict an amount of mortal damage on that unit equal to the roll. So with this, you're using it with a Butcher or a Slaughtermaster, just because if you use them, then they become Head Butcher, and you get an 18-inch range on this, and then you can just pop out these mortal damages a whole bunch. Otherwise, it's just a 12-inch range, and if people get within 12 inches of you, they're probably just going to come and destroy this thing anyways. But that is my review of the Ogor Mawtribes. It's a very interesting army. I really like the Stonehorn models and like the Thundertusk models. I think they're some of the coolest in the game. And I love, like I said earlier at the beginning of the video, I love that one of the lists that's going around right now is running like 5 of those, because it's cool models. They're really good. They don't have their ward save anymore. I know a lot of Ogre players are a little bummed about that, and it makes it a lot tougher because you don't have a ton of armor in any of these units or heroes, and so you got to really kind of plan out, figure out where you're going to rally, figure out when you're using Feast on Flesh. But if you haven't already, like this video, please subscribe to the channel. I'm not asking you to do anything other than that. Subscribe to it. You can turn off notifications. You can mute the channel so that you don't have to see us necessarily, but it just helps us to get our channel out there. Please go ahead, like, comment. If you play this army, what list are you running? What have you seen success with? What's your favorite unit, kind of a thing? All that good stuff. Thank you for watching this video. We'll see you next time.